All right, we are recording for chapter 13. I don't always remember the number. I just read until I see it says it's a new chapter. Anyway, um, so I don't remember which note it was where I would have written this, but I will just. There's still a technical error in this chapter, but it is making me feel, again, said this in another video, that this kind of stuff, the more conversational, in some ways also more so the drama of this, of the story seems to be much more where the author, Matthew Stover, is good at writing. Part one had a lot of action, and I hated that. And a lot of technical stuff that, again, not well done. And even then, he has done things that has made me hate characters I really shouldn't, but still, this chapter is actually... No, I'm quite happy with it, and I do think that it might just be, this is where his strength is. Like, for me, I typically, although I think I've got some examples that surprise me even, typically I am also better at writing conversation. Like, I can just sit there. Actually, I was writing some last night, and it was just back and forth conversation. And it just flowed very easily, very smoothly for me. That's typically where I'm better at. Writing the prose, writing the narrative, I can be good at that, but not typically with action. Like, I'm bad at, like, how I'm doing the hand gestures. If I'm writing, I would just be writing what's being said. I'm not writing in the hand gestures. I don't even think about them while I'm writing. Or I just am like, oh yeah, that's happening, and don't know how to capture it. That I know is a weakness. But anyhow. Otherwise, though, I'm typically good with conversation. But let's get to the actual specific points. So the chapter starts... I'm pretty sure that is... Yeah. Padme is told by a handmaiden that there's a Jedi at the door, so she gets up and runs there thinking it's Anakin. And instead, it's Obi-Wan. Which does frighten her. And it's a little weird, because it frightens her because, like, she wants to ask, has something happened to Anakin, but she's like, oh, wait, no, I can't do that. And then it changes it to, has 3PO offered you a drink? Or something like that. And Obi-Wan's just like, he has been quite insistent in offering me refreshments. I'm good. But it's like, wait a minute. There's no reason to believe... I mean, there's every reason to believe Obi-Wan is aware of their friendship. So, for Padme, who shouldn't have normal dealings with the Jedi, and she is also friends with Obi-Wan already, and has been for more than a decade, it's like, no, it's entirely reasonable if Obi-Wan comes, especially this is like the middle of the night or early morning kind of situation. Her asking has something happened to Anakin, because he's the one who would come and tell her if something happened. Obi-Wan is the one who would go, not necessarily because the council tells him to, but because, no, I need to be the one to tell her. We three are friends. We've known each other for this long. I need to be the one to tell. So, why she hesitates, it's like, their friendship is fine. It is kind of... Okay. It is potentially there to just set something up that is a little different. Related, but a little different. Which is... Obi-Wan is basically acknowledging, yes, I know you two have been in a relationship all this time. It's been obvious. Alright? I mean, it's like, he is really bad at hiding his emotions, and you're a good politician, Senator, but you're not that much better at hiding your emotions either. It's like, I know. Let me see if... Yeah, neither of you is very good at hiding feelings. Now, this doesn't indicate that he is aware of their marriage or of the pregnancy. Although you would think that a Jedi could, because the Force is tied to life, would notice, hey, there's something extra here. But yes, he is aware. Hang on. Yeah, starting with the whole, he's loved you since the day you met, and he's never tried to hide that. We pretend that I don't know, which is not completely true, but for his part is true. I was happy, too, because it made him happy. You made him happy when nothing else truly could. Sorry. Yeah, so we pretend that I don't know. I don't think that's quite accurate, because for him, yes, Obi-Wan is pretending he doesn't know, because if he were to know, he'd have to say something, he'd have to bring it up, and potentially Anakin would be kicked out of the council. If nothing else, it'd be, I assume, something akin to a court-martial. But there's never been any indication prior to this that Anakin is aware of at least Obi-Wan's suspicions. Like, Anakin does seem to be actively not having discussion, not seems to be actively trying to hide it from him. And while he would still need to keep up the pretense that Obi-Wan doesn't suspect, I do kind of wonder if Anakin knew that he does have a friend there that's like is willing to not exactly cover for him, but just avert his gaze from it. I do think that would help with his situation. But yeah. But it is also, I do just want to add, because there is a pretty good moment later on between Obi-Wan and Anakin, those two talking, that, as I said, the author is doing a good job here in this of really showing their friendship, their fraternal love for each other as well. That definitely seems to be a strength for him. But it is kind of to echo a point I had before. If I were somebody who would not always finish books, if I wasn't liking how I was going, I would have stopped in part 1. I would not have gotten to this. So, yeah. Okay. So, there is some... Obi-Wan trusts Padme, so he's telling her things that he may not be able to admit in other situations. Hang on. He's trying to stress with Padme, part of the reason why he came to talk to her is basically there are decisions coming up, or decisions that must be made now, that they're going to be very significant, and some of them cannot be undone. And he does say, it would be a very great mistake were he to leave the Order. Why? That seems unlikely, doesn't it? What about this prophecy the Jedi put so much faith in? Isn't he the chosen one? Very probably, but I've scanned this prophecy. It says only that a chosen one will be born and bring balance to the Force. Nowhere does it say he has to be a Jedi. He doesn't have to, she starts, but my master, Qui-Gon Jinn, believed that it was the will of the Force that Anakin would be trained as a Jedi. And we all have a certain, I suppose you could call it a Jedi-centric bias. It is a Jedi prophecy, after all. Okay. The next paragraph is really what I want to get to, but that setup is important. And is also curious because technically he's contradicting himself in this. Because he first says it would be a mistake for Anakin to leave the Jedi Order. But then he does go on to say, yeah, that's kind of just it's a Jedi prophecy. We have a Jedi-centric bias, so we're kind of going with that. It's like, maybe it isn't a mistake. But anyway, the next part that I want to talk about does, again, kind of make that a little questionable. If it is it would be a mistake. But it is also, if this was stated in a vacuum, I would have a problem with it. But it is clear, Obi-Wan is under stress. So what he says in here, I think, makes sense in that context. Okay, well, first she says, but the will of the Force, isn't that what Jedi follow? He responds, well, yes, but you must understand that not even the Jedi know all there is to know about the Force. No mortal mind can. We speak of the will of the Force as someone ignorant of gravity might say it is the will of a river to flow to the ocean. It is a metaphor that describes our ignorance. Say, I don't really like that. How he actually continues makes more sense. Like, I don't think a metaphor to describe our ignorance is something he would ever say normally. But he is under stress. But then we get this rhetorical correction, I guess is the way to put it. Sorry, I might be catching a cold, I'm not sure. The simple truth, if any truth is ever simple, is that we do not truly know what the will of the Force may be. We can never know. It is so far beyond our limited understanding that we can only surrender to its mystery. That, I think, the surrender to our mystery, is exactly what he means. And it's also true. It describes our ignorance. Ignorance has multiple meanings, so it's not entirely accurate to use that word there, but surrender to the mystery of the Force. That That is the better way to put it, I think, and is an aspect of the Jedi as well, that they are meant to be humble to the Force, whereas the Sith seem very prideful. They take and command the Force, whereas the Jedi flow with it. Almost while accepting that they may die in a battle, by their will to live, can probably still direct the Force to keep them alive. So it's, merging with the Force as opposed to wielding it as a weapon, as a tool. Okay. And then he does kind of go on there. It's like, I can't tell you what to do. I don't know. It's just, I'm really concerned. And you are part of this as well. And it's like, you will be able to potentially talk to him and help him through some of this stuff. There is also this. Obi-Wan, I can't talk about this. Because okay. I cannot tell you what to do, Padme. I can only ask you to consider Anakin's best interests. You know the two of you can never be together while he remains in the Order. Obi-Wan, I can't talk about this. Very well, but remember that the Jedi are his family. The Order gives his life structure. It gives him direction. You know how undisciplined he can be. And she says in her head, that's why he's the only Jedi I could ever love. Yes, of course. If it's true path that leads him away from the Jedi, so be it. But please, for both of our sakes, tread carefully. Be sure some decisions can never be reversed. So, actually, yeah, that is true. There is one thing that I wish she couldn't say it aloud, but she could at least say it in her, have the thought that the Jedi are his family, but so am I, and it's growing. I mean, it's, basically just the whole, he does have a family, he will have a family. I can make sure he has the structure and all that. But we don't have that set up in here, at least, well, may get it later, but anyway. It is just, an interesting point, I think, to make there, that she could have that, and how would that then change the outcome of the story? Well, rather how the story plays out. If she were, in fact, to decide to step up and basically take greater control over the relationship and try to pull Anakin out, or at least express to him that he can leave this all, that she can provide him those things that he needs. Would be interesting. But it is also his love and friendship with Obi-Wan is sufficient. He would not leave until the war is over and Obi-Wan is safe. Which would make perfect sense. Oh, man, yeah, I definitely think I'm getting cold. Sorry. What the hell's the next point? Oh, yeah. So, Obi-Wan is then called back to the Council because Anakin has brought intelligence from the Chancellor's office to the Council that they know where Grievous is. But one thing is kind of odd, is that it suddenly suggests when, okay, we want Obi-Wan to go, and Anakin's like, I'll go. It's like, he wants to go, even, and it's like, no, we want Obi-Wan to go. And there are reasons for this, but it still is a little odd. But the thing that gets weird is there's 7 people there, and they vote, and Mace Windu counted nods, 6 in favor. He waited, looking at Anakin. Further comment? Anakin only stared at the wall. After a moment, Mace shrugged. It is unanimous. It's like, it already was. Because previously it was stated he has no vote. Anakin has no vote. He's there as an observer, and he can represent Palpatine there, but he has no vote. Now suddenly it's after letting Anakin potentially say something, now he says it's unanimous. It's like, it already was. You already got the vote. So it is either an inconsistency that, oh yeah, I forgot he can't vote, or hang on, I think I'm about to sneeze. Need to be ready to pause at least. Or it's that he is just being granted it as a privilege from them. Where it's like, on occasion, we may decide, yes, you may have a vote. Oh, man. Okay. Hopefully I can get through this before sneezing. Don't you hate it when it's just building up? Okay, the next thing we have, and I don't need this open anymore, is senators have come to Padme's apartment to talk about basically what's going to happen. Especially with Palpatine having accrued so much power from the Senate, and how can they potentially get it away from him? Hopefully at the end of the war, but maybe even sooner, because things are not going well. And one thing interesting is, because they do not have... Palpatine has a sufficient supermajority that basically whatever he wants, he will get. Padme suggests that we could bring the Jedi into this. If nothing else, a moral authority, their moral authority. And they're like, no, we can't really trust it, and their moral authority has been spent on the war, not on in what's left for politics. Which, by the way, it's also implied that it was the Jedi that were leading the clones the entire time, which doesn't quite seem to follow with certain other things. But anyhow, like, why is Anakin then never described in the book, at least, as leading the clones? Kenobi's described as a general, but anyhow. One thing that happens is... Okay. Is Padme suggested just one Jedi. And at first, what she had, the thought she had in mind, because she's concerned about Anakin and all this, and not wanting to potentially produce another wedge, another source of pressure on him. But as she continues talking and thinking about it, she realizes she's actually referring to Obi-Wan for who the one Jedi could be, because they would need one Jedi who they trust. And it's just the whole, she loves Anakin, totally, completely. But Obi-Wan is who she trusts, fully. Who she truly trusts here. And it is one of those things where it may sound bad and she kind of hates it, which makes sense for her. But it is also one of those things where, yeah, that can be what happens. Like, Obi-Wan, the relationship Obi-Wan has had with her, and also with Anakin, more so, Anakin's relationship with him is a little more complex. But is one that trust is paramount. He was initially the apprentice to her chief protector, Qui-Gon. And he is somebody that you can put faith into, and he will do his very best to never let you down. Anakin will as well, but Anakin can be swayed by senses of loyalty that, while Obi-Wan does have them, he I guess a way to put it is he'd still understand how to prioritize it. Like, Anakin a way to put it, I think, might be, Anakin wants to satisfy everyone, but he ultimately cannot. So where do his priorities lie? Alright, so, like, between Palpatine and the Jedi Council, or Palpatine and Obi-Wan, he feels a loyalty to both. He wants to serve both. It's kind of the whole serving two masters thing. He can't really do it. Obi-Wan, it would make sense for her that this is gravy enough that would be able to go to him, and she the relationship with him would have been part of that. So it is. I know I'm doing a terrible job trying to explain this, but it makes sense. Obi-Wan's character is one that, even though, yes, she loves Anakin, she doesn't have a love, well, certainly not a romantic love for Obi-Wan, probably still a love of a friend for him, but that his character is one that is more trustworthy than Anakin's, because he's still kind of very emotional, and she knows that. And that will apply pressure to him in ways that you don't necessarily want. We finally get some information on Anakin's attempt to meditate at the Jedi Temple, which is what the previous chapter ended on. Him going to do it. It said that rather than meditation, it was more so brooding. Yeah, that would not be healthy for him, but I can believe that's exactly what would happen. But also that he gained a sense, because he didn't gain an answer, but he did gain a sense that within the Force is all the power, deep down, all the power he needs. Now, what's interesting is that while he gains that sense, it doesn't suggest that he knows necessarily what that means. So, or that he may start interpreting that incorrectly. By that I mean, like going back, and I only think about this now, on that other page with the whole surrender to the mystery of the Force thing. If Anakin interprets the Force like that sense of power there is that rely on it and everything will work out the way it should. You may be able to influence it some, but it still is. It will turn out the way it should. Or he could interpret it as the more Sith way, that there's power that he can grab hold of and potentially then use to some other effect. So it will be interesting to see if that gets brought up later. Last note I have is Obi-Wan's about to depart. They're loading up a ship with clone troopers and all that. And Anakin comes to see him and does want to go with him. And there's even a thought, and this is where you really have the love between these two very well described. And it's also one of those things, by the way, that a lot of this chapter is not in the movie, as I recall. But you do also have, because you can be in their head, and so you know how they are emoting, we know what their emotions are. It's probably better than in the movie, because sometimes in a movie, I'm going to say this in a way that might be insulting. I don't mean to be insulting to any of these actors. But sometimes in a movie, in this book, you get that there's a lot of emotion there. But in a movie, because the actor might not be fully aware of all the emotions there, I don't know how much is necessarily in a script. And it is also possible that these things were written in parallel to the movie, so they didn't necessarily have access to all this. And this is what the author wrote, how much of it is what Lucas wrote. Anyhow, and... Oh no, story and screenplay by George Lucas. How much of it is Lucas? So you may end up having an actor being more of a plank instead of being the character that we see in the story, because he or she only knows the plank there, only knows that moment, not everything inside for the moment or leading up to the moment, because that was what's in here. But in any case, one thing is Anakin does have a sense that if he were to just say, screw it, I'm going with you, Obi-Wan, and just have those few days away from all his politics, he does have a sense that everything would turn out all right if he did that. That if he even walked away from Padme for these few days. Which, okay, admittedly, never been in such a relationship, but it still is. I can believe that even though that seems like a horrible thing, I can fully understand that is something that is necessary at times. We're just, get away with the boys, get away with the girls. He's going for a few days and may end up dying. That's not so good. But, the whole having a boys' night out or a girls' night out, there are times when it's just a little bit of an escape. That it's, and not even escape from them, but like from all the associated responsibilities. Like to just take a break from it all. That can be healthy. And that he has a sense that things may turn out better there, and that is probably more of a prophetic sense as well. It's actually funny, he also, even before getting to that moment where it's like, he's thinking if he were to just leave, he also has a sense, and even as though if Qui-Gon was standing there beside Obi-Wan, and Anakin can hear the voice, Qui-Gon's voice basically saying, sometimes... How did he actually phrase it? Be mindful of the currents of the living force. To do one's duty is not always to do right. Concern yourself with right action. Let duty take care of itself. That is, again, just part of this whole... I lost the thought. But it is still the idea that if Obi-Wan just didn't go, things would turn out better. And that separating himself from Anakin is potentially a danger. Which, I guess one thing that would be kind of funny, they could have done, but it would have been too significant a change to the story, is if Anakin were like, well, Palpatine wanted me to be sent on the mission. Council's saying no. So fine, I won't go on the mission with you. I'll go as an observer for Palpatine to see how it goes and can report back to him with full accuracy. I'm just bringing my lightsaber along because, you know, a Jedi should always have their lightsaber kind of thing. I would say that would be funny and would... It would completely upset the story, though. But it is like, technically they could. Just a funny thought to have. But yeah, they can't. You need the separation from Obi-Wan. And it, yeah, in a way, it does also come back to the whole, Anakin is trying to serve everyone. Because he is still trying to serve Palpatine. He's trying to serve Padme. He can't leave. He has responsibilities there that he feels he cannot step away from. And Obi-Wan is not going to defy the Council. Because they put trust and faith in him, and also the faith of the galaxy, because he may end the war by killing Grievous. That he can be trusted there. But it is I could believe that if Padme had a sense of something, or just if Obi-Wan even had the sense that if he leaves Anakin, Vader will happen. He potentially would then not go. I could believe that is kind of his character as well, that he would prioritize those greater events over just Grievous and the war and all that. But, obviously we know that's not quite what happens. So, anyhow, that's it. This actually ended up being kind of short. That's nice, because as I said, I feel like I'm getting sick. See you next time.